episode of Real Raw Exchange Podcast. My name is Frank, and can I get my co-hosts to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Kyra.
Right.
Hey, I'm Nat.
All right. So, for this episode this week, we're going to kind of change it up a little bit in a sense of we're going to delve into a post that was conveyed on Facebook from a mutual friend of myself and Nat in reference to a particular topic that we want to, kind of delve into, understand the nuance of, and, really, have a conversation about. So, I'm gonna go ahead and read the post. Of course, when it comes down to this post, I'm gonna end up, putting it in the recording. So, if you, read along. So you have women my age and younger desire to be wives, but we weren't taught how to be a wife. If I can sum it up, I was taught to be independent and work. Now I'm struggling at this age because I don't know how to properly get a high level man worth marrying. Hashtag growing up black. I have great wife qualities, but I am self-taught and honestly still don't know what a wife consists of without being passive. Actively, I'm unsure what a wife's duty is. So, this week, I'ma call this episode Independence versus Wife Material. Independence versus wife material. Okay. Now, when I first was given this post, because Nat sent this, to us. When I was first given this post and I read through it, immediately one particular, I'll put it like, I'll sum it up as far as the post, but then I'll, give my take on one particular part of the post. So in great sum, what this post means to me, as far as what she was conveying, is that we live in a society where women, maybe black women specifically, really don't have the space or have, certain avenues to be able to understand what it means to be a wife. But then also, maybe that space is not necessarily being created based on the dynamics of the capitalistic society that we live in, where you got to be independent, you got to be self-sufficient, which promotes a sense of individualism, which also you have to, work. You got to make ends meet. Doesn't matter what gender you are. Bottom line, you got to do for self best way possible. Where that was my take of the whole post. But then one particular detail of the post that I looked at was the detail of, and I quote, I don't know how to properly get a high level man worth marrying. I don't know how to properly get a high level man worth marrying. And it's like, how does she define what a high level man is? Because if we are talking about high level man, when it comes down to what she's saying, she may be talking about something different. She may have her own definition of it. But then that goes into the scope of, well, when she says high level man, is she talking about how high value man? Does she believe, certain definitions that are now being promoted in, certain, avenues of media in reference to what a high level or high value man should be? Because oftentimes, as far as talking about the high value man piece, oftentimes that's denoting that there needs to be more men that have more financial standing or on a certain financial bracket, in addition to being able to have certain investments in their life where that prominently puts them on that pedestal of being said definition of a high value man. But I don't really know. I don't know if she's specifically talking about that, because of course she doesn't use the word value, she uses level. What do y'all think about the post? What y'all think?
Well, I mean, I had a conversation like this many eon ago in college with a professor from Wilberforce, in regards to African American women in marriage. And she said some very valid key points during her conversation with us in her class, that I took away from and actually used. And it's not, I don't remember verbatim what she said, but basically, we we come across independent, overly independent, and sometimes that can mess with the male ego, and so not dampening it, but I don't know, not making it as noticeable or putting it in another way that doesn't offend a man's masculinity per se, in a way that he still feels like, okay, he's head of household, he's doing what he needs to do, but not demasculating a man. In a way, is the way she kind of she said it, but she didn't say it in that exact way. I wish I knew I could remember verbatim what she said, but the way she explained it made sense because as I went through past relationships and I looked at friends' relationships, we were acting that way, and it nobody was at that time. We weren't looking to be engaged. We were still in college, but it made sense. So I acted some of the things she suggested do, especially with the route I was going and looking for a significant other, because I was looking outside the country. So I knew I had to change some of the things and the ways that I acted because it was not going to work outside of these borders. Um, so I did institute some of the things she said, and I've been married now for 10 years. Um, so, I mean, in a way, I do agree that in a way we were not raised like our grandparents were raised in regards to preparing for marriage and a household and all that and all of those things. I do feel like there's a change. There was a severe dynamic change, and it was, and there's data to prove it. There was a change in the African American household over the last, what has it been, 5, 6 decades, as far as the household composition. So there has been a change, and we have not necessarily been taught, okay, this is how to, secure and maintain a marriage. Because now we all look at going to marriage counseling. A lot of people don't have family members that have had successful marriages to even learn from. I only, in my personal family, we had one. That was it, and they were happy together, but they had their own dysfunction. And if I was to go off the base of what their marriage was, I wouldn't be where I'm at today because they had their own dysfunction, but it worked together for them. We did not have the quote unquote Huxtable marriage to look at from my family's perspective. I didn't even know nobody that had a marriage like that to base how to act in a marriage off from. So I agree. We don't have things other than TV to educate ourselves on how to be wives or how to secure successful husbands. Because for the most part, when I got to college, in my mind, what I've learned, that's where you meet your husband. If you're gonna find somebody successful, it's probably gonna be in college, and you're gonna end up marrying that person. And that's just what I had grown up with knowing.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Hey, Nat, what you got?
I I agree with what Kyra is saying. But when I think about the post, well, first, but let me back up. Sorry. Now, I was listening, but I was taking notes when y'all were talking because I had a few things, so I wouldn't forget
Okay.
what I would need to speak on. So let me just backtrack real quick. I totally get her post, and I get it from a few different, perspectives. It could be because I'm a Libra. I have to look at, it's hard for me to um, really side, or I have to take everything in before I make a decision. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is based on right or wrong. I think it's based on how she feels and what she's going through, whatever that is. But um, when Frank you mentioned something about, I think black women don't, or women, sorry, women don't have the space. I think that's what you mentioned. I don't remember exactly what you said, but I would change space. I would substitute space with, coming from what she said. I think how I interpret it is that it's almost as if, and I could be totally wrong, but this is just my interpretation of it, of more like, black women may feel like they don't have, after you reach a certain, level of independency, it's very hard. Okay,
Mm.
it's very difficult, whether you want to say it is or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to kind of step off that independent throne because you're used to doing things yourself. You're used to making sure things are taken care of yourself. You're
Setting
used
your
to relying on
ways,
yourself. Yeah.
being
Mhm.
set in your
So,
ways. Yeah.
yeah, because that's what steers you right so far, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's what you know.
Yeah.
That's what you trust,
Right.
right? So if this person is coming in and you want to let this person in, and all you know is I'm the person that does this, and it's done right every time I do it. It's no reason for you to. It's no reason for you to really step in on that role. Anyway, I would change space with saying like sometimes I think black women feel like they just don't have, because of the independent piece of it, they may not have the tolerance, right, or the time for it, because it's like, and I think that's what she's kind of leading to without saying that. I think it's indirectly being said, and I say that because she said something about being passive. She says,
The
white
the
qualities, but I am self-taught and honestly still don't know what a wife consists of without being
being
passive.
passive.
Why are you worried about being passive? Right? So that's how I took that. Is being passive genuine, right? Or is that, because I don't know if that's necessarily being genuine, if you're just being passive. Go ahead, go ahead.
I don't mean to, I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, go ahead.
I often believe that the word passive in relation to the aspect of a woman understanding what being passive is, often that word is seen as a synonym for weak, being weak, where the aspect, and hear me out on this one, the aspect of it is, well, you have certain men out there that say that they would like to be with a woman who is passive, you know. Okay, but in how do you want that woman to use that level of, passive nature, you know? Are you in a mindset of understanding where she is at that point in her life when it comes down to her maybe it being in a mindset of thinking that she can only depend on herself, in addition to now trying to understand things that necessarily she wasn't really taught, but then also the dynamic of being passive within American culture may be seen as weak because of the sense of independence that you need to have to be successful.
I, for me, I don't think that American women see, well, specifically, I'm speaking on a black woman's point of view.
Okay.
I don't think we see it as being weak. I think we get tired of hearing the word be passive because that's what historically we've been told to be. We've been told that you need to be this way and you need to be passive and you need to be submissive, and basically be like the others to be able to secure a man. And we're tired of it. Like you have to be demure and passive and non-aggressive in the workplace to get anywhere, and then to your personal relationships, you need to be this way. We're tired. Black women are tired of hearing about it.
Real quick, because I'm gonna lose this if I don't say it. While I agree with what Kyra is saying, if you think about it this way, I think that's some of the conflict. And I say that because now you have where roles have changed, where black women are now like taking charge, in charge, in corporate America. But when they come home, right? I think that sometimes it's a disconnect. It's like, okay, you're the boss, outside, and you got to be a certain way outside at home. I'm sorry, at work, with other people. But when you're at home and when you have a man in the house, I do think that there is a time and place to be passive. I do think that
Right.
there is time and place to be submissive. Like you can't wear the pants if you already have a man. That's not, then that's just going to cause friction, and it's
Right.
just. It's
here.
No,
not
I agree
allowing you to
with
be,
that. And I feel like that's where the confusion and the back and forth goes with us as African American women, is that we have to have this control and demure personality out in public, so we don't looked at as quote unquote ghetto or loud or inappropriate. And then when we come home, we also have to try to be that way, because it's there's a time and place for being the boss, and then there's a time and place where you need to be a little pulled back. But we fight with that, and so you get tired of doing it for 8 hours a day, and then you got to come home and also try to do it and keep that in mind at home. I think that's where kind of the problem comes in. So I agree with what Nat is saying too. I see that.
Being for myself, being married to a black woman and understanding her in reference to when she is at work and having to deal with trying to be as assertive as she possibly can with getting, her workload done, and having to communicate with others in ways where, it's about the goal. It's not about what you feel about the goal. It's about accomplishing the goal, you know? And that dynamic, placing her in a mindset where, more so she's within the energy of just giving commands, and I understand that dynamic, having to, give commands, tell people what to do, tell people what they need to do, so on and so forth. I totally get it. But then when you go home, or when you're communicating with your spouse, your significant other, when you're communicating with me, you don't have to have that energy. We are there for one another, What do y'all think? What do y'all think about that?
No, I mean, I agree that the energies definitely need to be different, compared. But I mean, I agree with that. The energies do need to be different. I'm just trying to think, because there were just so many things you said. For instance, in my field, social services.
Okay.
At the beginning of my career, I mean, I was a big personality. I believed that my job was to help people. Come to find out, that ain't the truth behind social services, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. So my first job, I worked in a jail, in a drug program. Mm-hmm. And so I was genuinely trying to help these women. Jails, all that stuff you hear is the truth. I was genuinely trying to help women who needed health services that they weren't receiving, who needed different things done in regards to making sure that they were on track to try to reunite with their kids that were taken by children's services when they got released. So I was doing what I was told was my job description. And basically what I was told to do was sit down and shut up and just listen. I was doing too much.
Well, that's others, trying to impede you from the passion that you needed to have about your profession.
Oh, every job I've had since then, that's been pretty much.
I mean, I think that's a normalized thing when it comes down to working in the United States. Everyone is more so just trying to, skate on the line versus, caring about what they are doing, in reference to the service that they are providing. If they are within, a services sector, like one of the things that I was trying to bring up more so in the scope of, me giving that example as far as, my wife, being at work and then her coming home, and then the dynamic of her not having to have the same energy that she has at work, specifically her having to exude that energy at home, is I don't have to exude that energy at home either. Where I was bringing up myself also as an example of me being at work, having to give commands, having to tell people what to do, and then I'm come home and I'm trying to treat my wife like she's one of my coworkers. I'm sorry, she's not. She's my wife.
Right.
Which goes into the particular point that I have about a dynamic that most of us don't really talk about, which is complementarity. What are you doing in the dynamic of your relationship that helps you and your significant other complement one another throughout the time that you're all together. You know, there are certain energies that we go through. Hear me out. Let me finish this point. There are certain energies that we go through on a consistent basis that may not necessarily be conducive within the dynamic of how we love our significant other, where we have to understand and be self-aware of those energies, what energies that we are able to use and what energies that we don't necessarily need to have there at all whatsoever. You know what I mean? What you got, Carol? You was want to say something.
So a side note on that is I was listening to another vlogger discuss relationships, and something that we don't allow our significant other sometime to do, and I think it is something that and I definitely had to analyze myself on this, is allowing them to decompress from work. Allowing your significant other to decompress when they come home from work. And you have to allow a person to switch mindsets. And sometimes we don't allow our significant others to do that because it takes time. You have to switch from I'm not at work anymore to home mentally. And especially for those now that are working from home, there's no commute to give you that space to switch anymore. You basically are coming from wherever your office is located back into, home mode. And so I had to be cognitive of that, of allowing and remembering it takes time for somebody to decompress and change over to home mode from work mode.
Right. Now, with understanding that and you being aware of that, you may be aware of it. Your homegirls may be aware of it. Some of your family members may be aware of it, but not everyone is aware of that, the need for that level of energy, the need for that dynamic, the need for that concept. To be able to understand the need for implementing that dynamic, this is one of the things that, we need to consistently talk about and, have Black women in the United States of America know that right when you are at work, you're in one compartment, right? You're in one compartment of your brain, getting things done, doing what you need to do, accomplishing goals, right? Set to task, right? But when you get home, that is another different type of compartment, where you don't need to be brash. You don't need to, be always trying to tell everybody what to do. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to have that particular energy. The issue with that is the amount of time that you spend in one compartment compared to another. Where how many hours are you at work? Compared to how many hours are you able to spend at home? That's one difficult thing because oftentimes we end up going with the larger percentage in our acts, in our behavior, oftentimes, but we don't necessarily have to. Where work is work time, home is quality time. Work is on task, accomplishing goals. Home is being able to decompress and being able to love up on your family. Being able to create that distinction between both of those compartments, which helps with understanding what I was saying before in the scope of knowing what complementarity is and understanding what you're good at, what you lack, what your significant other is good at, what that they lack, what they are aware of as far as their good qualities and qualities that they are lacking, and being able to balance each other out within that particular compartment. I believe complementarity is a surefire way of being able to understand the dynamic of knowing how to be a wife. Because also for husbands, it's within the same dynamic too. Knowing how to be a husband. You know what
I
I mean?
also think that a lot of black women are burned out. And I say that because
Okay, okay.
I'm thinking like one mistake I think, and I'm pretty sure, you know, I can probably attest to this, and probably the person who posted this. And this may be reason why they feel the way they feel. I don't know. But if you are in a relationship, not married, but in a relationship, you're treating that relationship as if it was a marriage, you know, that could be an issue also, right? Because
Okay.
you're not married, but for example, I was friends with somebody, and before him and his wife got became husband and wife, they were, just dating.
Mm-hmm.
And so one lived in Florida, one lived in DC. And he basically said, we were talking one time, and he was like, well, me and her are gonna get married. I don't want to say this. And so he was like, so I said, okay, cool. I said, oh, I thought that y'all had. Here's me though. So let me tell you how this conversation went.
Mm.
I said to him, I said, oh, you're gonna get married. I said, have y'all lived together yet? He said, no, not yet. Now, from my from my mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? I totally get, if you're thinking about it, the right way to do things is to get married and then live together. I totally get it. But then me coming from a set of me living with somebody, not being married, right? So now I'm asking him, I said, I believe in living together before you get married. 'Cause you just don't know what you're married. You just don't know. You don't really get just the person until you live with them. It's a total different dynamic. What he told me, he said, and they had a faith-based relationship. It was not Christianity. It was something else.
Okay.
But what he said is that how their relationship stands, or what's making it work so far, is the fact that they do not live together. And he said that they do have that faith-based component there. He said that if I lived with her, he said I would have no reason to marry her. He was like, if I lived with her, I would have no reason to marry her because I would have everything. He said it would be no reason to get married at that point. We'd be doing the same thing that we're doing, as if we were married, but we're not. But you have many times, and while I got it, I was like, oh, makes sense. And
Yeah.
it does, it makes a lot of sense. But when you were not, and he also had a model marriage, presence in his household. His parents have been married for over 40 years. So he saw what it looked like,
Yeah.
right? And I think and he knew, and I'm sure it was some dysfunction. Every relationship is gonna have dysfunction. But
Mm-hmm.
he kind of saw, what it was supposed to kind of look like, what that looked like, what it consists of. And that's how he kind of, at least that helped him start, you know, him with his marriage. And that's what they did. They stayed separated as far as, living together. And then they moved in together after they got married. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so something else happened, but I'll leave that out. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say that that's a lot of what's going on now also, especially with black women. I can attest to it, right? I can attest to it myself. I have lived with a man. What are you doing differently except for being contractually obligated to this person? You're doing the same thing. You are sharing the bills. You are making sure everything is being taken care of. You're supporting him, probably not financially, but in other ways. You're acting as if you are his wife, but you're not his wife. So a lot of times you get burned out because maybe that relationship doesn't work out, and then you start another one, another one, another one, and now you feel like, kind of, I think how this post is now is coming to the realization of, okay, let me just take a self check real quick. Let me have a reality check. I was taught to be this way. I was taught to be independent and work, right? I was taught to 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 make sure that I'm taken care of first. That's what independent means. It means to
Mhm.
make sure that 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 you are good, right?
Right.
um that's already an issue if you're inviting someone else into your life. If you're independent minded, that's already a problem,
Thank you.
right?
Thank you for saying that.
I've read something where a man was saying that, which made a lot of sense. It was very simple, but it made a lot of sense. He basically said that women, it was a message to women, and I think men, but specifically women, because he said that he noticed that when he was dating, he noticed this when he was dating, he would spend the night over a woman's house. He said that if you are one way to tell that if you are not ready to be in a relationship or be married, if you sleep by yourself. I think he said that if you sleep across the bed or something like that, he said you haven't even taken time to make space for somebody else to share the bed with you. And he said, so how can you basically have someone else there? You haven't even given up the mindset of sharing your bed with somebody else. And it was simple, it was small, but it was like, that make a lot. It was like a light bulb.
Can I say someone on that note? And
Yeah.
that's great to say. I actually think that's very smart. That's a very smart thought to have, because a lot of things that we end up doing, you know, in reference to accomplishing goals, being able to set certain goals, so on and so forth, we go through training to be able to accomplish those goals. You know, but it seems like a lot of people don't understand there should be a certain level of training or education that comes with understanding how to be a wife, understanding how to be a husband, you know, where I'm going to say this for me, and I'm going to be real about it. There were two main examples that I had growing up in reference to seeing actively two black people who are married actively working things out. Two main examples. Okay? I took from those examples, but it was only so much I could take from those examples. So,
Right.
what did I have to do? I had to be within my own level of autodidacticism in reference to self education, self learning, so I can learn one, myself better, in addition to learning how I could be the best husband I could be.
Yeah.
And is that something that's often talked about in reference to, okay, you don't know, let's just say you don't know, let's just say you probably missed one example that could have been a good example to give you certain things to think about. You don't know. Okay, have you looked up a book? Have you looked into actually seeing the dynamics of married couples? You know, have you searched for that? Go ahead.
And if you
What y'all
think
got?
about it, grandma and great grandma and great grandma or whatever, I was watching, I think, Kevin Samuels, who sometimes I agree with, sometimes I don't. But
Uh,
one thing he said, one thing he said, I personally find him entertaining. But one thing he said, he's real big on the black women being submissive to men or whatever. But he said, why can't y'all just? He said, what's wrong with doing what grandmama and them did? And in my mind, I'm thinking, you don't know what grandmama did. You
different
only know
era.
what you see.
Different era.
You don't know what she did.
Right.
Different
Because
era.
grandpa was bringing home everything, and grandma
Okay,
Different
he was
was
era.
taking
taking
for
care of the
everything.
home.
All
Different.
my grandmother did was cook.
This is one of
Right.
the things.
She did work, but she didn't have to. That
Right.
house was paid off. I come from a really big family. It wasn't the same dynamic. And that steers into black men. Now, I'm not even going to touch on that, but that steers into black men. You have a total different generation, total different mindset of black men. where
different,
it's like it's
different
making it
era.
hard.
It's
So I get this
different.
color.
You can't take. And this is one of the things that I'm gonna just be real about it, because certain things that Kevin Samuels says, I'm like, that's only one way to look at it though. You know what I'm saying? Where I'm like, you trying to hit it, but you ain't really hitting it out the park. You know what I'm saying? You just button to first base. Like my thing is, we can talk about all day what grandmama did back in her day. But what we're dealing with today is not what grandma did back in her day. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Just the same as we could talk about what grandpops did back in his day.
Yeah.
I'm not dealing with what grandpops did back in the day. I'm not.
That was at Miss Mary's house. He's real big on that, and I think some stuff I don't agree with everything, and that's one thing I'm like you gotta. It's almost like you have to.
Let me say this. Let me say this real quick.
Same time here, we're not in the same. We're not in that day.
Let me say this real quick.
You deal with a lot of men. A lot of black men who were pacified by black women. I ain't gonna talk about that.
That's also another point. But let me say this. Let me say this particular point. My thing is, certain eras allotted certain experiences, right?
Yeah.
Where there are certain things that black women went through back in the day that contributed to the trauma that black women are going through today.
And while they're teaching their daughters.
And same thing with black men. Black men back in the day went through certain crap that got passed down, projected in certain ways that weren't conducive for us, that now black men today are trying to figure out, how the fuck do I deal with this shit? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Mentally, but we're still not going through the same things that they went through. They more so were in the energy of being resilient, which resiliency doesn't always allot a good outcome. It doesn't. Which, based on the topic we're talking about now, places us in a disposition with black men and black women where you have a lot of black women feel that it's just necessary to only be independent and only work. And you have a good amount of black men who don't really understand and know the value of being more nuanced within their thinking.
Yeah.
It's
true.
It's making it hard when you have, and I'll put it in this perspective, you have a good amount of black men that automatically get intimidated by a black woman who is making more than them. When you have black men who automatically get intimidated by a black woman who probably has a degree and they don't. But then on the flip side of that, it doesn't help when you have certain, not all, certain black women who pride themselves in the degrees that they have and put that on a pedestal versus understanding other information that could be a means of making them more whole of a person, as in the grand scope of covering all different aspects of what a human being should be doing. What y'all think?
I feel that on top of that, media feeds us sometimes an unrealistic idea of what relationships and romance should be. And I was teaching a class when I was working in the jail about this. I had read an article that the reason Twilight was so big, it fed into women's needs. our need to want a relationship like that, even though it's very toxic. Because Edward and Bella's relationship is quite a toxic relationship if you really look at it at a psychological point aspect of it. But it was put in such a way that, oh my God, every woman was either wanting what Edward and Bella had, or they wanted what Jacob wanted with Bella. And it's neither one was a healthy relationship.
Not near one. Not at all. Like, no.
But every woman wanted it. And we were teenagers when this came out. So then our minds were like, okay, this is what it should be. When I meet somebody, it should feel like, I should feel like Bella, and that should be Edward, and he should act like that. And then when that didn't start happening, when we got into the real world, we were like, well, what is this? This is not what we were fed. And even if you go beyond that to Disney, every little girl grows up like, I was supposed to have a Prince Charming and, come riding on a horse and save me and do all these great things. And it doesn't necessarily, that's not a realistic view of how a relationship should be.
I believe...
Well, you can say the same thing.
I'm going to just say this one point. I believe the earlier you can teach the next generations, teach your children, the importance of understanding reality compared to fantasy, the earlier you get them on that, the better they will be off later on in their lives. Because oftentimes, we may take something that is propaganda-based and make it normalized within our thinking that creates expectations that will not be met.
Right. And that's very true. And I mean, in different aspects of media are picking up on that. Disney, as we all have seen, is addressing family trauma. That's their whole new thing. Between Turning Red and Encanto, they're identifying and addressing these issues. They're no longer on the princess binge that they were on for decades. So I mean, they create new princesses now because they've done all the traditional ones. But now they're addressing all these relationship traumas that they see the generation that grew up with Disney have. And so now they're trying to wheel us back in and bring our kids into the theater because we started talking about women power and they couldn't do nothing about the princesses that was already out there. So now they're trying to address other things going on. And mental health, they're trying to bring it out for a whole new generation. It's working for them. They still make billions. But anywho.
Your face. Now, you got something to say, Nat? You got something to say?
No, I mean, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, especially with the Twilight point. It's true. Like, no, that's not true. Don't believe that. Don't look at Twilight and think that it's gonna be that way, because it's not gonna be that way.
But it's easier.
It's not I mean, it's not that it's not.
It's easier to be in a sense of fantasy and want something that is you're being shown, and
that's just like sex, right? So on movies, if you're, especially for women, I don't know about for men because I don't think it's the same thing. But for women, when you're a teenage girl or coming of age girl, you see your first, scene or whatever. Not even a sex thing. Let's say that you see like a boy and girl kiss, or two people kiss, two people kiss, and you want that because on TV, on camera, it looks like they are enjoying the kiss. It looks like something that is desirable. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Don't nobody tell you that they even stick that nasty tongue in your mouth. Don't nobody tell you. Don't nobody tell you that somebody's breath may be stinking. They don't tell you all that. All you
don't nobody tell you that the person you might be kissing don't know what the hell they doing.
Exactly. Don't nobody say that. Okay. Now, if you didn't take your first sex scene, a lot of reasons why girls lose their virginity, because they didn't take the sex scene and it looks desirable. It looks pleasurable. I think, if you see it and you feel like it feels good, okay, through the camera. So you're like, I'm not going to do this. Wrong move, okay? Because, and I'm not going to go into no detail, but it's not, y'all. It's not, okay? It's not what it looks like. Because first of all, it's an activity that you have not engaged in yet. And it's not. It's bad. It's probably one of the worst experiences a woman could ever experience before probably,
First,
childbirth. But
And
after that,
even
it's fine. But the first experience is quite it's just it's not good at all. No, it's
But
not.
beyond that first experience, I mean, again, back into media's
I mean,
falsification of the
after
whole
that, it's fine.
situation, it's not necessarily what you see in the movies with some people ain't cuddlers. You might not get that, all night cuddle through. They might roll over and go to sleep, which is a large percentage of people
I don't tell
who
you
roll
that
over and
either.
go to sleep.
That should be a disclaimer. No cuddling. No foreplay. That's a whole new
And I
topic.
don't even talk about that part, the foreplay part. That's something that you have to be taught or learn that is necessary for a woman, because a lot of men do not understand that that's a necessary prerequisite to get into the finish line for a woman.
fair. I'm gonna
I,
just say fair.
I feel like
Everything that y'all said is fair.
Right.
I believe, because there is so much propaganda out there in reference to being able to get money, get currency from people to believe in certain images.
Oh, sex sells.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
but
well,
I
yeah.
mean,
Fantasy sells. Anything that,
but with movies, if you go further back, like, so movies really blew up in the Depression because it was the Depression. That was the escape. So when the studios figured out, oh, so we can at least keep them calm and somewhat sedated with giving them some type of escape, we found the key. And so that's why movies are the way they are today. It provides an escape from reality to give you something that needs to be fed internally, and you think you've gotten it from going to sit down for an hour, 2 hours, well, 3 hours now. Movies are ridiculously long. You get from watching this movie. And that's why movies are the way they are. They were a way to keep the American people somewhat sedated and happy within the small lives they had at the time during the Depression.
Fair. Yes, I agree. And the biggest thing right now is being able to understand the the concept of spin. I think it was Dave Chappelle when he did one of his comedy specials. He did was it the Asia spin, as a matter of fact, and talking about you're able to see an image, but what is actually going on in that image is not necessarily what you think is going on in that image. You know, like I give you one example in the scope of us talking about sex and losing virginity, stuff like that. What may have you leaning more toward the looking of at pornography, right? Or prod, Now, have y'all ever heard of the concept or have seen examples of the concept of what is called a deep fake?
Yeah, the videos of celebrities in videos that they did not do. Yeah.
Right, where they take a picture and they
Yeah.
digitally switch the
The
face
face.
of the original person who was in that video and make it look like said celebrity or said picture that they wanted to put on that body.
They're not just doing celebrities. They taking random people's
They
pictures now.
they did it they did it in Fast and Furious with what's the boy name that passed away? I forget his name. Paul Walker.
Paul.
They did with Paul Walker. They had Paul Walker's brothers
Brother.
be in the position to have them have the deep fake of his face on their faces. Did y'all know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say like 2020 did a whole thing, or what might have been Inside Edition. Somebody did a whole thing on deep fakes and how damaging it can be for people.
It can be where the aspect of taking propaganda and taking people's fantasies to that level. Now, you got people now trying to create what is called a virtual world, where certain things that you wouldn't be able to do regularly in the real world, you're now able to do in the virtual world. You have like
I
a
think
virtual
somebody
avatar.
just got arrested because they did something to a child. They tried to entice a child in metaverse. Somebody just got the first arrest involving the meta life reverse or whatever it's called. Just got arrested for enticing a child.
And here's the thing: this whole metaverse thing, they're legitimately trying to make a thing to where maybe sometime in the future, now more so, everything that can be done within the virtual world will be done. To give an example, being able to work at different companies. They already had a situation where they had someone purchase the very first expensive house and land within the metaverse. That just happened recently, I believe, sometime this year. $500,000 house in the
what?
metaverse.
How much?
$500,000.
That's stupid.
Is this a game? I'm sorry.
No,
I don't
no.
It's a virtual world
It's
that
a virtual-
Facebook has created. They're trying to switch everyone over to this. There are several games, VR games that are like this already out, and I cannot think of them. They're out, but they were not as popular, and they're trying to. Facebook is trying to make it popular and make people get into this.
Think of The Sims, like the video game The Sims, and them taking that concept and now virtualizing it to the point where, like, to give an example, cryptocurrency, right? Or even NFTs. You know, concept.
And that's all the metaverse uses is
and
NFTs.
That's all that the metaverse uses right now when it comes down to currency. NFTs, in reference to making sure that whatever can be done in the virtual world will be done. And now you're more so putting more effort and energy into your virtual world versus your real self.
Right. Because there's a couple millionaires that became millionaires because of their NFTs on the new thing with Facebook. Yeah, it's several of them. They became millionaires because of their NFTs, and that's why everybody's trying to make NFTs now. And I feel like just because several of them became millionaires, now that it's popular and everybody wants to do it, that's not going to happen. It's not going to be realistic.
Now, how can I tie this back to the original conversation? Okay. All right, so the dynamic of consistently letting yourself, I'm gonna do it. The dynamic of consistently.
I know. Come on over here.
Right. The dynamic of consistently letting yourself be more so delving into the propaganda of the world as far as being as independent as you possibly can, and letting yourself just being encompassed in that, being individualistic, delving into things such as, more in-depth virtualization such as metaverse and NFTs and all that other stuff, and then not understanding the dynamic of organic relationships when it comes down to really getting to know someone, when it comes down to really studying the person that you say you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And it's continuous study.
But I feel like by opening up this whole conversation is that we're getting away from the organic relationships with people. Like now, people, it's an everyday occurrence to break up via text message. When texting first started and you got broke up on a text message, that was the most heinous crime you could ever have committed. But now it's a regular everyday thing.
Now you got motherfuckers ghosting.
Text me good morning. I don't like
motherfuckers ain't even gonna text you. They will just ghost you.
Well, that too.
You know what I'm saying? They will be like, all of a sudden the next day, you don't see not in their social media account from said individual.
They will block you all the way.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Ghost. Like, go on. That's where we have come to, which also contributes to us not delving into really studying and understanding and learning about really having those organic relationships that we should have. Really understanding, what it means, being detail oriented, what it means to actually learn how to be a wife, learn how to be a husband, really search for the knowledge. Because not everything that we may think we need to know is going to be just given at the behest of our doorstep. It's not just going to automatically just be like, hey, there you go. It's right there. No, that doesn't ever happen. it now places us in a disposition of understanding what we see that are red flags that push us to understand now what we need to go and search for, knowledge wise, gaining wisdom from others who are actually doing what we believe we should be doing. Transparent enough to know I don't know certain things about what it really means to be a wife.
I mean, she's saying, she's posting what a lot of black women are really thinking but won't say. I mean, that's what a lot of us are sitting here like, what the hell is going on right now? I
And
can't
then,
figure this thing out.
and then,
That
it,
is what I'm telling you. I get it. Like when I read that post, I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's like purgatory. It's like you're stuck, and
I'm gonna just say this. It's not purgatory that you're stuck in not understanding those things. It's purgatory when you decide to stay in one particular thing. If you decide to stay in the sense of independence and work related things because that's all that you know, then now that becomes a choice. That becomes a choice that you're making.
I think everything's a choice.
Well, okay, fair, agreed.
I think
Agreed. Everything can be a choice. Everything can. But then you have certain ones that genuinely believe it's not a choice, it's their destiny. I said what I said. Destiny. You got certain ones out there. Yeah, I'm supposed to be doing this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be. Give an example. I'm supposed to be a single mother.
What?
Well, I don't think it's no single women out there, no single mothers out there. I'm supposed to be a single mother.
No, because I'm gonna say this. I'm not saying that it's the norm. What I am saying is that you do have ones out there that genuinely do believe this.
I don't know about that one. I mean,
some, not all. Obviously, some, but all. But you do have ones that are out there that legitimately believe that is what they're supposed to be doing. Not saying
why? But why would they believe that they're
because probably in most cases that is all that they have seen.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? Because oftentimes we end up being in a mindset of only what we have seen, only what we have experienced. That puts us in a mindset of thinking, oh, this is what is normal. This is what is to be.
I see what you're saying.
Because it's normalized, that means it's normal. No, it's just been normalized.
I get it, and I think that when you're since we're bringing it in, I think that what also contributes to this post is that, and I'm not married, but I know I have friends that are married, and I think that are married. So a lot of things you do, a lot of things that you do as a married person you may not do as if you were not married. For example, I know somebody who believes that married people shouldn't really hang out with single people. That's what he believes. Okay? That's what he believes. So, whatever make your marriage work, make your marriage work.
I have a certain take. I have a certain take on that. I don't necessarily believe that married people shouldn't be hanging out with single people. What I don't believe is married people should be taking complete advice from single people on married things.
Oh no, I agree with that. That's why when she initially posted, I think I'm not gonna say her name, but you can go and see who she commented, and I said, "You're not even married." I personally felt like that post was just common sense that married women should answer the phone, married people. And I just like, come on, y'all not even married. She genuinely, she is vulnerably posted this because she wants, she's looking for something.
Yeah.
And all of y'all single people in here, that's the first mistake she'll make if she take advice from somebody.
Somebody who's single.
I mean,
Somebody who's single.
honestly, that's what Gabrielle Union said. Actually, she said, and she's married to Dwayne Wade. She said that somebody asked her, said that she went somewhere and a fan or somebody asked her about how about what makes a marriage successful, and she basically said that the first mistake that person made was asking me. She said, I'm married, but how do you know that my marriage is actually successful? She said, it was rumors surrounding, him, infidelity and things like that. And she was basically saying that, um, I'm still working on my marriage. That's how she sort of uh, uh, responded to it, right?
Yeah.
But I respected how she responded to it, and I was like, that makes okay, I get it, And she's basically saying it's not successful yet. She was like, we're still working it out, like that. That's basically what she was saying. And
I don't know.
But I mean, you can see it from two different sides. I mean, if you
I don't know
some
how
people, some people think if you got married, you've already successful. You've gotten to a place that that person, that
I
a
don't
lot of people are trying to get to anyway.
I don't
That's not how she
know
told.
I don't know if in a capitalistic society if it's healthy to use the term successful in reference to marriage.
That's just like he's a high level man. I honestly don't understand what that means. I get what
You
high
see what I'm
level means.
saying?
I understand it, but I think that women in general, personally, not even just black women, because black women not the only women that's having an issue finding high level men. I'm just going to say that. But I will say, I think that we have a bigger problem with high level men, but we're not the only ones
We're
having that issue.
right.
But in some instances, you have women who first of all, what's your definition of a high level man? And why don't you just separate the high level from man? Why don't you start with finding man? If that's what you want, you
Right.
can start there. Why are you?
I feel like this is something we're
I'm
raised.
just saying. Obviously, you ain't got nothing yet. If you're out there looking for a high level man, I mean, you have to start from somewhere. You have to start from somewhere, and that's a
Right.
lot of what I hear, especially black men saying that like for example, my friend, he said y'all asking for no, he said y'all want too much, and then that went to a whole different thing,
I
right?
mean, blanket of
I don't
statements.
necessarily say that I agree with what he said, but him and I don't see eye to eye anyway on a lot of things. But what I am saying is that a lot of women, that a lot of black women, I have heard use this term before, high level, high value man. And
Here's my
Kevin Samuels is all over the social media talking about how to his whole
he
podcast is
he has
geared towards
benefited.
how you can find a high value man.
He has benefited
And
from
thank you.
women's need to gain whatever they believe their definition of that is. He has benefited from it, and he's continuing to benefit from it.
It is. And the issue is that I think what the issue is in some cases in some cases for some of the women, I believe in being satisfied. So let me just say that. I believe and I don't see it. Some people may see it as being like settling for something. I don't see it as that. I see it as being satisfied. If you're satisfied with the person you have, if the person you have makes you happy, if they're taking care of home, if the relationship is working out and y'all have a good, healthy, sustainable relationship, that's fine. Be satisfied with that. What do you
I
want?
don't see a problem with the term settling, but the term has been used as a negative term in reference to nothing
Yeah.
is ever good enough.
So
Yeah, that's what that's what I'm referring to. That.
What you got, Kyra?
Yeah.
so I
And then I
mean,
think that a lot of times, like the women, like for some of the women, not all of them, but for some of the women that want these high level men or whatever, or high value men, they not once they get one, whoever that may be, they ain't ready for him. You know why? Because they ain't got shit to bring to the table. They think they know what they want. They don't know. They don't know what they want. They don't know
Kyra,
what they want. They
Kyra,
don't know. Then that brings home that's a whole different discussion. But I think that's one of the issues. I think that
Kyra, what you got? What you got to say?
So I agree with some of what she's saying. I believe that our generation was raised to look for these quote unquote high level men. I mean, I was, I saw the relationships that my cousin astride for crumble because she was going after this quote unquote what we were supposed to go after. And I told my mother and my aunt to their face, I'm marrying because I love the person, not because of what they have
right.
or the degrees they have. I genuinely love the person. That's who I'm going to marry,
Yeah, me,
and that's what I did.
me too, me too. The
Well,
thing is,
I was geared toward. This is a different discussion too. I was told to marry, not date, but when I'm ready to get married, to marry a light skinned man because I'm dark skinned, and that's a whole different thing. That's a whole different thing. I'm telling you. And I just saw
thank you. Like,
an article about why a lot of dark skinned women have issues finding. Apparently, they're at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to finding a man. I got my own views.
okay,
We have to
I
talk
was
about that.
told, and
Like,
Nat knows my situation. I was
that's
told
what
to
I was
marry
told. I was
American.
told
I
don't
was
marry
told to
no
marry
dark
an
skinned man
American.
that
you was told to
because
marry.
No,
I
you
was
would
told the
have
same
dark
thing.
face.
Even now, just Kyra, just letting you know. Even now, or just being transparent. Even now, family members of mine are having an issue with me accounting both cultures within conversation, where I talk about both because both are equal to me. But then it becomes, and I quote, but I'm not going to say who it is. It becomes, well, I don't know about that. And I'm like, well, you are knowing because I'm talking about it. And then I'm gonna just put that out there. But nevertheless, I totally get what you're saying. One thing I wanted to say is, and I'm gonna kind of wrap it up because we go on this all day, right? So here's the thing. Here's my wrap up, right? I think one of the biggest things when it comes down to black men and black women being able to find quality in an individual that they would want to be in a relationship with or even spend the rest of their life with is being able to understand how to look at character versus only looking at characteristics that most cases propaganda tells us we only need to be looking at. You know, character traits such as what do they think about family? You know, and that can be a nuanced conversation in itself because said individual could not have any communication with their family, or they could have all the communication in the world with their family, or it can be in between. But then being able to understand, be it no communication, all communication, or in between, how is that communication with that individual? You know, where that level of communication can also affect how they communicate with you because they have learned communication in a particular way. Where that now goes into the aspect of studying your partner consistently to be able to understand where their character lies. Which, in my opinion, because it's one way to think of it, just one way, in my opinion, once you're able to foundationally understand where your significant other's character lies, that's where you can gain a foundation of what they are willing to do and what they're not willing to do and what they are about, which will help you be able to balance out levels of complementarity with them so you all can have the best growing dynamic in your relationship possible. Be it boyfriend, girlfriend, man, woman, or be it in a marriage, husband and wife. So I think the biggest thing that I would say, not only for black men, but also when it comes down to my black women, being able to see that man of character is understanding what character traits you need to look at specifically, so you can have some level of quality in your life when it comes down to the man that you decide to be with. It's hard, but it's not impossible. In addition to the fact that once you have someone that has a, let's say, a great character base, also understanding there are going to be things that you're not going to like. But what outweighs? The things you don't like or the character traits that you know is needed? And with that said, I'm Frank. This is Real Raw Exchange Podcast. Y'all take it easy. Have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye.